Hello, my name is Janice, and I want to share a story with you. It's a story filled with unexpected twists, deep emotions, and hard lessons about love, betrayal, and the importance of standing up for yourself. Before I take you on this journey, let me introduce the main characters of this story. First, there's me, Janice. I was born into a family that was well off, and from the outside, my life may have looked perfect. People might assume I was spoiled or had everything handed to me, but that wasn't the case. My parents worked hard to build their wealth, and they always taught me to be independent and to work for what I wanted instead of relying on family money. My father is a self-made businessman who built a successful company that specializes in engine additives. He turned a small business into a thriving empire. My mother, equally ambitious, established a chain of beauty salons, making a name for herself in the beauty industry. When I was 21, my parents decided to get divorced. Unlike many messy divorces, theirs was peaceful. They divided everything fairly and even stayed friends. My father chose to remain single, dedicating himself to his business and enjoying his freedom. My mother, on the other hand, found love again and remarried, though I remained her only child. Then there's Matthew, the man I married, the man who would change my life in ways I never expected. We got married not long after I finished college. At the time, I was just starting my career as a music teacher for children. It was a job I adored. I loved the energy of the kids and the joy of teaching music. Everything seemed perfect in the beginning, but that illusion started to crumble when I became pregnant. One Sunday afternoon, as we relaxed at home, Matthew casually suggested that I should quit my job. "Why don't you just stay home with the baby? We'll figure it out," he said with a shrug. I was taken aback. Financially, quitting wasn't realistic because his salary alone wouldn't be enough. More than that, I loved my work and wasn't ready to give it up. When I voiced my concerns, he dismissed them with a smirk and said, "We can always get help from your dad." His words infuriated me. It wasn't the first time he had hinted at using my father's wealth, but this time, he spoke as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if my family's money existed solely for our convenience. I brushed it off, hoping it was just a careless remark, but things only got worse. A few weeks later, during a dinner with his parents, Matthew brought up the idea again. His mother, Mary, was always calculating, always looking for an opportunity. His father, David, loved to offer advice, whether it was wanted or not. When Matthew mentioned me quitting my job, they both jumped in with enthusiasm. Mary leaned in with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Janice, dear, your parents have more money than they'll ever need. Why not take advantage of that?" David nodded in agreement. "Exactly, you don't have to struggle. Your dad could help out, and you could focus on the baby." Their words made my stomach turn. I felt like I was being reduced to a source of wealth, not a person with my own ambitions and values. That night, I confronted Matthew about it. I wanted to believe I had misunderstood his intentions, but when I asked him about it, he looked at me, his face unreadable, and said, "It's not about needing the money, Janice, it's about being smart. Your parents have it, and we deserve to benefit from that." The word deserve echoed in my mind long after he had fallen asleep. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing that Matthew and I had fundamentally different views on what it meant to build a life together. Despite this, I still hoped that we could find common ground, but that hope quickly faded when his parents became more involved in our lives. Matthew's parents had a way of spotting financial opportunities, and my family's stability was like a beacon calling to them. One evening, David pitched a business idea that just needed a little startup cash. Mary, in her sugary voice, chimed in, "Janice, with your family's help, we could make this happen. It's a guaranteed success." I kept my voice steady. "Mary, David, I've said before that our finances are separate from my parents. We're managing on our own." But David wasn't ready to give up. "Come on, Janice, your dad probably spends more on a weekend golf trip than what we need. It wouldn't even make a dent for him." I was stunned. They were sitting in our home, enjoying our hospitality, yet they spoke as if my family's money belonged to them. And the worst part, Matthew didn't see a problem with it. "Maybe they have a point," Matthew said. "It's just a loan, right? We'd be helping family." The word family felt hollow. I turned to him. "Since when is it our job to fund your parents' plans?" The conversation turned tense. Mary scoffed. "Well, I never. We thought family helped each other. But if you're going to be stingy." I didn't hold back. "Working for what you have isn't stingy, Mary, it's called being responsible. Maybe that's something to think about. When our daughter, Elizabeth, was born, I hoped for a fresh start, but things only got worse. Matthew's parents arrived at the hospital with a cheaply wrapped onesie, while my parents brought thoughtful, high-quality gifts, a hand-knitted blanket, essentials that would actually help. Mary, instead of appreciating the generosity, sneered, "Wow, really laying it on thick, aren't they? Must be nice to just throw money around." Matthew laughed. "Yeah, Mom's right, a house would have been more practical." As I held our newborn, my heart ached. Was this how they saw my parents? As a never-ending source of money? And even worse, did they see our daughter as another way to gain access to it? I tried to keep the peace. It's not about the price, it's the thought that counts. David shook his head. Still, investing in property would have been smarter. The car ride home was silent. I felt exhausted, not just from childbirth, but from the constant battle for respect and boundaries. Matthew tried to reassure me, saying his parents were just old-fashioned, but doubt crept in. Did he love me, or for what my family could provide? A few weeks later, during yet another visit, the topic came up again. I had never been so insulted in my life. Never. We are just worried about the future of the family. There's no reason to be rude about it. As always, Matthew tried to play the peacemaker. They're just curious. This is a big deal, you know. A big deal? I repeated, my voice rising with disbelief. My parents are gone, Matthew, and all you and your parents can think about is money. Is that all I am to you? Just a bank account? The entire room went silent. The tension was so thick I could feel it pressing down on my chest. Matthew looked helplessly between me and his parents, mumbling an insincere apology. But it was too late. The damage had been done. I could see the greed in their eyes, the lack of any real sympathy for my loss. "Get out," I said, my voice cold and firm. Mary muttered something under her breath, while David shot me a glare before turning on his heel. Matthew hesitated for a moment, as if trying to find the right words to smooth things over, but I had nothing left to say. 3 days passed before Matthew stormed through the door, his face glowing with excitement, completely unaware of the pain he had already caused. "Babe, I have amazing news," he practically shouted. "I just made a deal to sell the hairdresser chain. Can you believe it? We're going to be set for life." I felt my stomach drop, my fingers clenched into fists. "What? You did what? Without even asking me?" Before I could fully process the betrayal, his parents arrived, carrying expensive food from a 5-star restaurant. Mary waltzed in first, practically dancing with joy, waving fancy cigars in the air. "Guess what, sweetheart? We've sold the old condo and put a deposit down on a beach house. We're all moving to the coast together. Isn't it just fabulous?" My entire body tensed as if I had been struck. "Excuse me, you what? I don't remember agreeing to any of this. I don't want to live by the beach, with all that humidity, the wind, and the chaos, especially with a child. Have you lost your minds?" Mary waved off my concerns like they were nothing. "Oh, don't be silly, dear. We've already booked a moving crew. You'll love it once you get there. Trust me." My patience was wearing dangerously thin. "And where exactly is all this money coming from?" I demanded. Mary gave me a look of pure delight. "Oh, honey, between your father's passing and the sale of the salons, we have nothing to worry about anymore. We're set. Imagine, yachts, private jets, we're living the dream now." I turned to Matthew, my heart pounding in my chest. Why are we even talking about selling my mom's business again? And what's this ridiculous talk about being set for life? Matthew sighed as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Babe, it just makes sense. Running both businesses would be too much for us. We need to focus on what's more profitable. This is for our future, for our daughter's future." The audacity, the sheer greed, it was suffocating. "Show me the financials for the salon," I said, my voice sharp. "I want to see everything before we make any decisions." Matthew hesitated. "Look, it's about our future. We just need to make sure we're comfortable." His parents chimed in, urging me to stop being so difficult, but as they spoke, it became painfully clear, this wasn't about securing a better life for me or my daughter. It was about squeezing every last dollar out of my inheritance for their own gain. "Why the sudden rush to sell the salons?" I asked again. Matthew's father, Tom, shrugged like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Look, after your dad passed, running both businesses just doesn't make sense anymore. We need to focus on what brings in the most money. The auto oil business is practically printing cash compared to the salons." Mary jumped in eagerly. Selling those little shops will set you up for life, dear. Why waste time on them? The greed dripping from her voice made my skin crawl. I had heard enough. I want you all to leave, I said, my voice like steel. This is a time for mourning, not for vultures picking apart what my father left behind. Matthew tried to speak, but I cut him off. And just to be clear, this inheritance we're talking about, it's mine. You and your parents have absolutely no say in it. The room grew cold. Their eyes darkened as they realized I was not as weak as they had assumed. With reluctant steps and bitter expressions, they left. The day after my father's funeral, the house was quiet, the air was heavy with grief, but Matthew, completely unaffected, was already planning. We need to schedule a meeting with the company executives right away, he announced over breakfast, barely acknowledging my pain. I stared at him. Matthew, my father was just buried. Can't this wait? I need time to process. He waved off my concerns. Time is money, babe. We have to move fast. Enough was enough. I called our family lawyer and had him pull up all the financial records. Over the next month, I buried myself in paperwork, sorting through the mess my father left behind. Meanwhile, Matthew and his parents kept showing up, pestering me with greedy suggestions. One day, Matthew walked in without so much as a greeting. I've been thinking, I should take over your dad's company. I'm the best man for the job. I stared at him, dumbfounded. Before I could even respond, he kept going. And I need a new car. A proper business leader needs the right vehicle. The latest BMW will do. Before I could find the words, Mary piped up, oh, and the beach house is almost done. We just need an extra $460,000 for the final touches. Also, I'll need a personal fund for my expenses, you know, to maintain my lifestyle. I snapped. Without another word, I pulled out the divorce papers and placed them in front of Matthew. He blinked at them, his hands shaking. What's this? Divorce papers, I said firmly. I had the business audited. Matthew, you've nearly run it into the ground. His face turned pale. I was trying to help. By firing the best staff and letting everything fall apart, I shot back. Mary, ever the manipulator, stepped forward. Now, dear, let's not be hasty. He's entitled to half of everything. Marriage binds assets, after all. I let out a dry laugh. Nice try. Everything has been in my name since before I made the mistake of marrying your son. He gets nothing. Their dreams crumbled before my eyes, and as I shut the door behind them, I knew I was finally free. A new beginning awaited, just my daughter and me, and together, we were unstoppable.